Bonda kusuwa sha.
Munombondiswai kana kumbofona shuwa.
Yeah, sorry kwakuri busy sha. Waswera uchiteiko nasi?
Kutomenya zvangu nzunguka dzembe wona kamvura yanaya fiu totomboita kazvekuchimunda chedu chii.
Ko baby dairo ukafona?
Aina basa ifio.
Sha, auchaina basa. Anokanzi Cobra. Ndiani anonzi Cobra iwe?
Ukabva waziya vanhu vese here naifili.
Alice sha, hausi kundidaira ndati ndiani anonzi Cobra?
Mukomana wechingoro yanotengesa Cobra.
Ndipe ndizvionere chimwe ndipo phone.
Zvaita sei
Alice sha, Alice ndipo phone Alice.
Aiwa kanzi.
Atidimuna nenaro Alice ndipo phone.
Iwe Alice. Ndikuvadza kani Philip ndisiye. Amai. Stop gender-based violence. Stop fighting with your partner. Dzidzai kutaurirana.
Fundani ukukhulumisana.
Musarovana.
Lingachayani.
Musakuvadzana.
Lingalimazani.
Call us today on 577 for help. This message is brought to you by Say What in partnership with United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, and the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe.
So once again, it is a very good morning and welcome to this program, proudly brought to us by Say What, with support from the Embassy of Sweden in Zimbabwe. And of course, we're going to be talking to Hendrina Chitsama, who is a drug abuse advocate, together with Blessing Mvunzawabaya, who is a student. And the topic is drug and substance abuse. And we are talking about SRH related complications. So last week we had our first segment on drug and substance abuse and feedback points to parents putting a firm hand on their children to ensure that their children are following in the right footsteps. Others indicated that the economic situation in the country and lack of information are the key drivers of the drug abuse menace in the country. Hendrina and Blessing are joining me in studio today to assist with the SRH related implications of drug and substance abuse, and Say What is celebrating 20 years of existence while championing young people's sexual and reproductive health in Zimbabwe and Southern Africa under the banner Say What at 20. The primary goal is to see a generation of healthy young people in Zimbabwe and the region, and young people are encouraged to call 577 anytime for all their health-related challenges and physiological, psychological support. Remember, this program is brought to you by Say What, with support from the Embassy of Sweden in Zimbabwe. Good morning, Hendrina, and good morning, Blessing.
Thank you very much,
All right, if you can come a little closer to the microphone. Can't really hear you. You know what? When we looked at it, when the topic was brought to us to say this is what we're going to be talking about, it definitely is a scourge, and I know that it's topical at the moment in the country, and there's just so much, that these drugs and substance are negatively impacting, families, young children and stuff. So we really need to have these and other discussions. Let us talk about the young people that Say What represents. What is the situation like, on campus and in communities? What is the situation on the ground, Church, with regards to substance and drug abuse?
Thank you very much, Yvonne. And I would like to say the situation on campus and in communities is worrisome and in a state of dilapidation. Let me give some empirical evidence. The United Nations Office on Drug and Crime in 2013 released a World Drug Report, and it estimated that 28 million people in Africa are victims of drug, substance, and alcohol addiction. And we have found out that in 2019, the World Health Organization reviewed statistics that in Zimbabwe, young people are constituting 70.7% in relation to drug-induced addiction. And now having a closer look on the number one menace, which is the most denounced and yet abused drug, which is crystal methamphetamine, locally known as Guka, Mutoriro, Buwe, Nendende. So these are street lingos that have been labeled to this substance. And I would like to give a context of addiction, whereby when one takes crystal methamphetamine, there is a release of dopamine, which has a euphoric effect, which is a pleasurable effect, that the reward system will constantly be hijacked, and someone would ought to rely on this substance. and there are a number of parties that are happening, be it on campus as well as within communities. There's been serious misuse or consumption of what is known as shisha. It's something which is trending. You find out kuti munhu anotaura kuti handitore cigarette, but they spend most of their time eating shisha, which is more toxic compared to someone who is just giving a puff of a cigarette. We have issues within communities ekuti vanhu vakushandisa madiapers or mapampers or even sanitary wear so that they could just become intoxicated. So this just demonstrates how dire the situation is in terms of the craving that young people have to satisfy the quench of having euphoria or a pleasure, so to say. Last but not least, I'll highlight some of the drugs that are being abused by young people. We have bronclie, which is locally known as ngoma in the streets and in the ghettos. And we also have tumbwa, which has been on the rise. These are small spirit cans which have an alcohol content which is ranging from 40 to 60.7%. And you find out that even the elderly are taking this so-called tumbwa. Others are calling it mukozodo without dilution. So already there is a serious issue there, and it's very deplorable.
Indeed. Thank you so much for passionately speaking about this as a young man and as a student. Blessing. Totally appreciate, and how well you actually know some of these things and the street lingo and the names that are being given to these drugs. And you know what? I was actually, when you were talking about it, I was actually remembering a story that I saw on the news last night, where people are actually said to be creating or making these drugs by mixing methylated spirit
Yes.
and some juice that comes from fertilizer. Imagine that.
That's very sad.
And then a water purifying agent. And then it's put into a little, bottle, and then it's sold at $1 or something along those lines. And it's poisonous to the body.
Absolutely.
Suffice to say, it gets you looking like an idiot, talking like an idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I get it.
I think that is the menace. But look, as a young person, I'd like to bring you closer and more in depth in this discussion.
Okay.
What do you think are some of the major reasons? Because you're talking about the euphoria and getting your mind off things and stuff like that.
Yes.
What do you think are some of the driving factors for young people of today to actually really want to be immersed, in this drug and substance abuse?
There are a plethora of reasons, and for me, fundamentally, number one, it lies within the community. We're talking about the society, how they are castigating, how they are disowning, how they are condemning the victims of substance and drug addiction. You will not be surprised that you will be labeled Rombe, you'll be labeled Chigunduru, because you are already someone who is succumbing to drug addiction. So these names that we are calling, or the way we are castigating victims of drug and substance addiction, it's creating a form of bitterness with someone who's already struggling with addiction, so that I need to tukwa kumba, so drugs. We can also highlight the issue of peer pressure, particularly in a campus setup. When we are looking at universities or a tertiary institution, they create sort of a world within its own world, whereby you find things that are trending, things that are socially acceptable. To an extent, yekuti vanoti crystal meth haite, that's Illuminati, but indirectly they are accepting kuti lighter in quotes substances or drugs like mbanje or bronclie are better. So the more we have been talking about crystal meth, it has created a form of social and legal acceptance, so to say, to add to some of these drugs. Nekuti zirunzi crystal meth ndoeri kungonya kanganisa sterek. We can also talk about what is known as the compensatory behavior, whereby we find that my parents, they have been giving only maternal love, and they have not been giving paternal and maternal love to the kid. So when they grow up, they will try to find solace in drugs, because all of these things they have been lacking in the process. So I'm just saying kuti kuvabereki, we should find time yekuti tinogara semhuri nguva yatinenge tichidya sadza manheru, and we get to share our experiences, daily experience. How was your day like at school? How was your day like at work? So it creates some sort of unity within the family and understanding my problems munhu ari kutosangana naye. But you find out each and every parent are focused on putting food on the table. They don't have time. Vanodzoka kuma 10 manheru na 6 makuseni vatoenda kubasa, so there is no time for them to interact at deeper length with their children.
Yeah. Thank you so much for bringing that to the fore, Blessing. And as a parent, I am really spoken to, you know, and I think what I'm picking from your message generally is that we need a holistic approach to this issue.
Absolutely.
It's just not about young people being irresponsible.
Yes.
It's just not about us catching the drug lords.
Yes.
It's also about us as the parents
Yes.
strengthening the family fabric to say your child can actually be able to tell you, Mamaga, I am struggling with
Yes.
stress, and then you are there to actually assist and say, you know what, it gets better, you know, or something like that. But when we shut out our children like that, we are also kind of contributing to this scourge and this menace. Blessing, allow me to thank you so much and give you just about a minute or so to give us your final word in this whole discussion that we're having, which is proudly brought to us by Say What, and look, of course, with the Swedish Embassy. And we would definitely want to hear your final word as a young person.
Absolutely. I would want to give a special shout out to my mother and my father
Aww.
who are listening right now. My little sister Michelle, I know you're in school, but you get the recording of this. And to my special constituency that I represent as a peer educator and as a member of Say What, Great Zimbabwe University peer educator, continue the fight not just on substance and drug addiction. I know we are pushing fights around gender-based violence, mental health, as well as abortions that are actually a scourge within our communities that we claim to represent. My words to someone who is struggling with addiction will be, I don't guarantee you that it's going to be an easy journey of rehabilitation as well as integrating into the society, but I'll assure you that is the right step for you for recovery. And for someone who has never been involved in substance, drug or alcohol abuse or misuse, I urge you not to ever go that path. There's nothing funny, there's nothing interesting, and there's nothing that you can brag or glorify when you go such a path, but the results are very much detrimental. So I urge you to stay in your lane and make informed decision as a young growing person. I would like to say thank you very much.
Listen, how old are you?
I'm 23 years old.
Wow. Well, apologies for asking about your age live on air, but I just needed to put things into perspective. You're a young person, such a jewel, and you know what? We totally appreciate this passion. Please spread it around in your constituents and wherever else you represent young women. You mentioned gender-based violence, and it then just occurred to me. Could you know? It's also one of the major reasons why young people then kind of withdraw and you know find solace and comfort in drugs. And look, like I said, we need a holistic approach to this scourge that has hit our communities. Thank you so much, Blessing, for coming to studio, and of course Henrina, who we then excused. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us about drug and substance abuse and its related consequences and complications. So many messages are coming for you as a young man on the studio WhatsApp platform. People are saying
I can respond one or two.
No, they're actually just saying well done, Blessing.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Blessing, for advocating, because you know what,
Okay.
I think we need this kind of guidance with our young people, from as little as kunana 10 chaiko,
Yes.
kunobuda uko, kunana 27, 28 tichitodopfuurira futi kuenda kumadhara chaiko. And you know what, it is because of these efforts that I think we're on the right path in fighting drug and substance abuse. Blessing, thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Thank you very much, listeners.
And of course, this program was proudly brought to us by Say What, with support from the Embassy of Sweden in Zimbabwe. If you missed this, you know, the rest of the discussion, if you just joined us, feel free to go to our Facebook page, Star FM Zimbabwe. You'll most definitely get the recording there. Shout out to Shafla, who was behind the microphone. We'll be right back straight after this.